we're continuing to integrate those new presidents and those athletic directors and have those conversations. But our strategy around adding the 4 initially was very intentional. And it was intentional to kind of put everybody on notice, like, we're rebuilding and we're here and we're going to be here. And the inbound interest has been absolutely incredible. So there's not enough hours in the day for us to engage with all of the people that are interested in being part of the Pac-12. Our goal is to be really intentional about that process and make sure that we're putting ourselves in the best position to be successful.
Welcome back, or welcome to Y Option. I am your host, Yogi Roth, of course, joined by Jim Thornby. And today, our guest is the commissioner of the Pac-12 Conference, Teresa Gould. And with that, we've got some cool news here on the Y Option front. For those of you watching on Pac-12 Insider, welcome. We're excited. Our show is now on this platform as well, Jim. It's pretty cool. And of course, you can get it everywhere you already have watched this bad boy: Substack, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. But really proud to now be on Pac-12 Insider. And it makes sense that today our interview is the commissioner of the Pac-12, the new look Pac-12, Jim, in Teresa Gould. So let's just
do we know how to time it, or do we know how to time it?
Yeah. Hey, big thanks again, assist to Josh Issue, for making that happen. Came off last week, right? We timed it pretty good. Jake Dickert, we had him on, this bad boy. Teresa Gould, she'll share in the interview. She's on her way right now to Pullman. They've got a game on a Friday night. JB Long, by the way, calling that Michael Bumpus. Cameron Irwin, check that one out on a Friday night. The fireball will be flowing. They're talking CFP. Of course, they're hoisting that Apple Cup. They're never going to give it back, enshrined with the Pac-12 on it. I
like that Jake said, like, we might make another trophy and then just keep this one forever.
Totally. But we got to come back down to earth, because you got to go play the game. So what are your thoughts about new look Pac-12? We did a little bit on that earlier this week with Mike Sanford, but your thoughts today and where we sit heading into the Pac-12 matchups this weekend. Of course, the headliner being Washington State against San Jose State.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me with the Pac-12 is kind of, and I'll use this as an umbrella for not only are the 2 schools that are still there, but the 2 schools that they played last week that, are now in the Big Ten. What's it going to be like moving on from this game? Now, obviously, Oregon has a bye, which is probably the most genius time bye of all time, because you don't have to do this. But like, normally those rivalry games are the final game of the regular season. More often than not with these schools, they would have a bowl game after the fact. Recent history, you would have a conference championship game for some of these schools after that game. But, it's literally, you're climbing the mountain all season to get to that game. And now you've climbed to the top of the mountain and you still have 75% of your schedule to play. And it's just like, obviously Washington State is going to be on a high right now. Oregon State probably on a low right now. But they both are facing teams that are interesting, because Washington State is facing a team with San Jose State. You've got whose quarterback used to be a Cougar backup. The offensive coordinator used to be the offensive coordinator at Wazoo. They've got the receiver who right now is killing, Nick Nash, who's killing it, and he's leading the country in every receiving category. So I think on that level, like, that is going to be a pretty fun game, regardless of the fact of you're saying that it's a Friday night game and the fireball will be flowing.
Yeah, it's really good. There's a lot of compelling elements to this team, right? We've called it America's team since the summer, both of these schools. So whoever you were cheering for, wherever you're watching this, we know that's your team. But after that, you should be rooting for Oregon State and Washington State. And now Washington State is undefeated, and they kind of take the lead a little bit in that regard of what they just did. They put it on Texas Tech. They beat their rival in an epic fashion. But to your point, Jim, like, it's not over. And now they go from being the team that I think was everybody's darling, right? If you believed that they were America's team, you were cheering for them, you were rooting for them. Well, now they're going to be the team that everybody's going to attack as they transition to this new look schedule. So they're going to get Ken Niumatalolo's very best from that team. They're going to get Nick Nash's very best. Emmett Brown. I sat in quarterback meetings with Emmett Brown a year ago on the campus of Washington State. I mean, this dude can spin it. He's competitive. So they're going to have to deal with that. And I do believe, though, that the two things that stand out that championship teams have or successful teams have is they have a culture and they have a belief. And I know this team has that. They've got a veteran element to them. They've got a workmanlike element to them. And I think that starts with their head coach, Jake Dickert. So I think it'll be entertaining. It'll be exciting. I don't know if they blow the doors off of San Jose State. I think it'll be extremely competitive, like every weekend here on out for them. But they're the better team. They should come out victorious. They should come out with some fireball in their belly. And they should be continually chanting that they are America's team. I think it's a fair conversation. Now, on the flip, Oregon State, they host a Purdue team that just got drilled by Notre Dame. I mean, that was brutal, right? And in comes Graham Harrell, who you remember from the West Coast, his time at USC as the offensive coordinator, or his time in Pullman on Mike Leach's staff. They've got Hudson Card, who I think is top third of the top quarterbacks in the Big Ten Conference. They got a system that's going to spin it. And Oregon State wants to control the ball, run the rock. So the question to me is like, Oregon State bounce back from a tough loss, right? They're fighting, they're in that fight for the first half, and then the talented Oregon, in my eyes, just became a little bit too much for the Beavs. So what's their reality today? I think they can go ahead and win this game. I think this becomes an environment that we've seen in Corvallis. So I hope that fan base comes back recharged because they need them. They need to come back and get into this fight against a team that I think Purdue will bring their very best in this game, but they don't know what it's like to go to Corvallis, right? This is not like it's a consistent rivalry game. It's kind of one of those weird one-off games. So I think advantage Oregon State, but they got to jump on them early.
Yeah, it's interesting because, both teams are licking their wounds from last week. And Purdue, I mean, I don't know if I've ever seen anything like this before. They won their first game by 49 points, lose their second game by 59 points. So, I mean, they're talking about two ends of the spectrum. But the one really thing where, you kind of look at the numbers from last week, that's promising for Oregon State because they only had 131 yards on the ground against Oregon. They were averaging almost 300 yards a game in the first 2 weeks. Notre Dame last week ran for 362 yards, over 8 yards per carry on that Purdue defense. So I think as far as, what we all think of Oregon State's great strength, that seems to be one of Purdue's weaknesses. So that I think at least in that respect is something that they can try to exploit.
Yeah, quarterback run game, Giovanni McCoy, I'd imagine that will be something that they lean on the offensive side. For the Beavs, one side element that I think is pretty cool, both head coaches made their name as defensive coordinators. And I just think that's kind of fun when both of your defenses struggled a week ago and now you're going to come on back. So I'd imagine we get the very best from those two teams.
Ready, set, dream cabin nestled in the woods. Just 4 hours to go. New job halfway across the country. Butterflies before a first date. Wherever you go, 76 fuels all the ways you go, go, go.
Speaking of being all over it, everybody's been all over the storyline around the Pac-12, and they should be. There's reason be, right? Last August through the season, you're thinking there's no way this thing is going to make a comeback. You're thinking these two schools are going to depart for another conference. At least that would be the goal. And here comes late last week. There's news that comes out late at night that the Pac-12 is going to expand, and it's only going to be phase one and only 4 teams. Well, here we go, because that became news. And to no surprise of us, I wonder what our viewers or listeners would think. I thought that the majority of the community in college football or on the internet were stoked on it. They were like, good for you. Like, go build this thing, go do this thing, and let's see what your next steps or stages or phases will be. So we did what we had to do, right? We called up the Pac-12 and said, can we get the commissioner on, Teresa Gould, to talk through the process of identifying, the process of accepting these schools, the process of rebuilding this 100-plus-year-old historic conference, and she came on. So that is today's guest. So excited. It is fueled by our founding partner, 76. It always is when we dive into these deep conversations. It's keeping you in the know and, of course, on the go, go, go. So thankfully, Teresa Gould, the commissioner of the Pac-12, was able to hit pause on her very busy schedule. She's on her way to Pullman after this interview, but she stopped to sit down with us. So here she is, Teresa Gould, commissioner of the Pac-12 Conference, presented by our founding partner, 76. Fired up to be joined by good friend and now Commissioner Teresa Gould of the Pac-12 Conference, which has rebuilt. It has been an exciting couple days, and Wazoo plays on Friday night. So, Commissioner, thank you for coming on the pod for the second time now.
It's awesome, Yogi. Thank you for the invitation. I always look forward to an opportunity to talk to all of our fans and supporters on the West Coast and across the country for sure.
All right. So what are you looking forward to on Friday night? You're heading up to Pullman. There's a lot that goes on there, as you know, on a game day, let alone a game at night on a Friday.
I cannot wait. I think, last week when the announcement was made, in the back of my mind, all I could think of was how much I want to be in front of student athletes and be with the coaches, be with the community, and feel the energy, feel the excitement. So I can't wait to get to Pullman. I love night games. There's something special that happens at night in Pullman, coming off of their huge Apple Cup win. I think it's just going to be incredible. And I can't wait to be around the energy and walk the RV lot and hang out with the band and just have a great time.
I love it. The fireball and that lot will be flowing. Stay away from that, but I know you'll enjoy all the fanfare that comes with it. What has it been like to be you over the course of the last couple months? And then you think of the last week or so of the addition of these 4 schools, and you have been in the fight. You have been fighting on behalf of these schools, and just kind of curious what it's been like to walk in your shoes.
Yeah, I tell people have asked me a lot over the last 6 or 7 months what most days feel like. And my answer is always, well, half invigoration and half exhaustion. And I think that's accurate, right? The opportunity and the possibilities that we've been fighting for and that we've been pursuing are exciting and invigorating. I also, felt the magnitude of the responsibility. I know who I'm serving, and those student athletes deserved to have a great outcome. And I believe we've delivered that, but I took that responsibility very seriously. So it was a lot to carry around for a long time. And, last week when the announcement happened, it was pure joy. I think I talked to you the night before, Yogi. I think it was a lot of joy, a lot of excitement, some relief probably mixed in there as well. But it's been an incredible experience, one that I'll never forget. And it's just phase 1. We've got more work to do for sure.
I'm reminded of this story I was told in my 20s by a mentor of mine named Pete Carroll, who you know well. He taught the staff around the concept of the word compete. And he'd say, if you looked up the word compete on your phone, it would say to strive against. But if you scroll down a little further, the Latin root of that word is to strive together. And here you've been striving together with 2 schools in this competitive, environment. I mean, it has been a battle for you. I'm curious, like you said, relief. Like what was that like when you knew it was going to expand and you were going to be able to tell these other 2 that you've been walking with at Washington State and Oregon State that, hey, like this is phase 1 and it's actually reality?
Yeah, I think, part of competing and fighting, as you suggested, part of the joy of that is doing it with a team of people and being surrounded by people who have shared values, that have a shared vision, in this case, a shared commitment to student athletes, and doing it with those 2 presidents and those 2 athletic directors and all of the other stakeholders on their campuses that had to jump in on this to make this a reality and to make this possible was super rewarding. And, some of these people I've known for 25 years and have had longstanding relationships with. And so it was really, really rewarding to do it with people that I respect a lot and admire a lot and really care a lot about.
Since the moment you took the job, you talked about being bold, aggressive, open-minded, and intentional. When you look back on phase 1, I'd imagine it'd be check, 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 check across the board. Here comes phase 2. How do you remain bold, aggressive, open-minded, and intentional?
Yeah, I think we have done all those things and we'll continue to embody that as we move forward. I think a lot of people have asked me, why did you just go get four? And that was very intentional. And I think the next phase will be more of that, right? I think we're continuing to look at how do we position ourselves, now that it's clear the Pac-12 is here and is going to continue to be here. Our goal is to position ourselves year in and year out to be one of the top 5 conferences on the competitive field year in and year out in the country, one of the top 5 conferences. And that can take a lot of different forms. And I think we're together kind of talking about, like, how do we accomplish that and what will that look like? And as I've said all along, there's no preconceived notion about who those schools are or what that model is going to be. But we're going to swing for the fences and we're going to do everything we can to make phase 2 kind of the, cherry on the ice cream, if you will, to kind of finish it out in a really positive way.
So many times since the Pac-12 changed last August, I was on campuses like you have been, and the resounding thought, even this fall or this training camp, it was, man, like college athletics, it's so sad to see what happened to the Pac-12 happen. Like, I don't want to call it like buyer's remorse, but there was definitely a lot more emotion and sadness around this historic league. And now you've reinvigorated it along with others, of course. I know that you're a total team individual and team leader, but you've been leading this thing. I got to imagine that to be a preeminent and premier West Coast conference, your phone must have been blowing up once that first shoe dropped. I'm curious, is that accurate? And if so, what can you share about maybe your mobile plan that maybe you'd upgrade after last week's news?
Yeah. Well, a lot of people on the team have asked, like, how many text messages have you gotten? And I'm up to over 200, maybe 210, 215. And the ones I wasn't surprised about were, longstanding friends, longstanding colleagues, people from our departing schools that I worked with for decades. What I was surprised about, Yogi, and what I think made me the most proud and reinforced that we chose the right path were all of the former Pac-12 student athletes, many of whom were from our 10 departing institutions. Like, I had dozens and dozens and dozens of former student athletes across lots of sports of all ages, alumni from those 10 departing institutions that said, thank you. This league means so much to us personally. And even though my own university alma mater is no longer a part of it, we will always be loyal to, we will always care about, we will always be attached to the Pac-10, Pac-12. And that meant everything to me because that's how I feel. And that's, part of why when we chose this path, it was clear that the Pac-12 brand and the Pac-12 legacy meant a lot to a lot of people. And those text messages just reinforce that.
When it was any one of the, up to 200 Pac-12 employees that had to call their last day, you called everybody, including Jim Thornby, who is co-founder of Y Option here today. You did that on purpose because you're very intentional as a human being. I got to imagine when you get these official, 4 new additions to this league, is there a party that's like, okay, I'm going to be able to I get to offer people a little bit more stability that are here in our small staff that we built from the ground up. And did you think, like, I get to call some other people back possibly, or at least have some other opportunities?
Yeah, well, I will say, aside from Pac-12 alumni and former student athletes, a lot of the text messages I got were from former Pac-12 staff, many of whom have moved on to some next great opportunity and some of whom are still looking. But that also made me feel really great because I know they've been out there cheering us on and they've been kind of with us through this whole journey. But to your point, when I got on our all staff meeting the morning of the announcement, honestly, I was overtaken by a lot of emotion to look those people in the eye and say, we did it. Like, we did it. We're going to be here and the Pac-12 is going to continue. And part of that, Yogi, is when we went from nearly 200 staff people down to around 30. number one, those were some of the hardest decisions that I've had to make. But to get those 30 people to believe in me and to believe in my leadership and to take a leap of faith under these circumstances to stay on and be part of this fight meant everything to me. So to be able to deliver good news to them also felt really, really great. And you absolutely can be assured that as we look to the future and we reimagine the Pac-12 and build something really great to serve the modern day student athlete, you can bet I'm going to be making some calls to my old colleagues and trying to convince some of those folks to come back and be part of something really special.
Okay, so speaking of calls and speaking of special, the Apple Cup was pretty special. It always delivers, regardless of whoever wins, and we love people on both sides of that thing. But I've been calling both of those teams America's teams in Washington State and Oregon State. And I felt, at least for the Cougs coming in with the veteran team that I thought they had under Jake Dickert, he had been there for a while now. They had a shot to beat Texas Tech at home in the honorary Mike Leach game, and then a shot to get Washington, in Seattle. They do, and they do it in epic, historic fashion. And now they have a real path. They'll be favored in every game moving forward. How do you talk to Coug fans and or your peers in college athletics around Washington State, who won't be one of the 5 highest ranked conference champions this year for an automatic bid into the CFP, but if they continue to have success, they sure as heck should be in the conversation for getting one of those 12 spots.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're a very deserving team. And I really appreciated Coach Dickert's comments after the Texas Tech game. I think, this country and the people in our industry that make those decisions really need to be put on notice about not just this team, but this program and what they've done consistently year in and year out. And they absolutely are a team that needs to be in the conversation. Like at this point, they've beat 2 teams that compete at the highest level in this country, that are resourced at, a level consistent with the top teams in the country. And, look, I look forward to our first CFP selection call, because there's certainly a lot there to talk about. And I think under Coach Dickert's leadership, the trajectory over the course of this year they're just going to keep getting better and better and better. And look, I agree with you. When you look at their schedule, like, I think, they'll be favored, and it's a favorable schedule for them to go and continue to post wins and be in a position for a strong postseason selection.
Yeah, they're going to start getting everybody's best. Okay, so let me hit you with a theory. Let me know what you think about it. And you can hit me with a no comment if you want. But here's my theory. If when I was coaching, or your husband was coaching in college, you never wanted to play any of the teams that are now in the new look Pac-12. You just didn't. It was going to be tough going to Corvallis. Heck no, you're not going to Boise. San Diego State's always been a sleeping giant, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, when you look at these teams. Well, now I look at it and say, okay, well, this is you're entering phase 2. I'm sure phase 3 and 4 have some sort of media rights element to it. Maybe get creative, and it's private equity. Like, there's a lot of things that get thrown out around the reconfiguration, new look of college athletics. And this is a really cool opportunity, because you get to, start from relatively the beginning and build this thing up. And I started thinking, I said, okay, well, Fresno State, they love football there. Boise State, they love football there. There's also schools in, call it the Big 12, that love football. But if all of a sudden you can give them the same resources to build a facility, to support in revenue sharing, all things that I'm sure are part of phase 2, 3, 4, 5, however many you may have, I look at this league and the teams, at least that are in today, and I say, yeah, let's go head to head with another one of those leagues. And I don't want to put you in a tough spot, but that's where my head goes, of where this thing can go as it's reimagined.
Absolutely. And I think part of the intentionality around building the composition of this league was finding institutions that are committed to competing at the highest level, but also institutions that want to kind of reinvent what conferences look like and really be at the forefront of what's in front of us in this industry, not what's behind us. And candidly, Yogi, when I look at all the conference realignment and the shifting and everything that's happened, I think one of the vital mistakes that is being made is not enough people being willing to think differently and take risks and look forward to what this industry is going to be in 3 years, 5 years, 8 years. And I think these 6 members are going to do that and absolutely have that mindset. And I think, these teams, I think Boise State has had the most consecutive winning seasons. Like, they're one of top 4 or 5 programs in the country. And I think with the Pac-12 brand, Pac-12 enterprises as an asset, and what we can do together to think about the commercial enterprise differently, to put resources in their hands to support student athletes, I think the opportunities are tremendous.
Okay, so we all know what has to happen to become truly a conference based on NCAA rules, et cetera. Well, what can you share with us about phase 2? And does it happen like within a couple hours? Like, how does this thing shake out?
It's hard telling, Yogi, because I have been consistent in saying that it is my job to balance the patience to kind of allow things to unfold a little bit and the aggressiveness to go after the schools that we want. And it has to be a balance of both, quite candidly. So, look, we're continuing to integrate those new presidents and those athletic directors and have those conversations. But our strategy around adding the 4 initially was very intentional. And it was intentional to kind of put everybody on notice, like, we're rebuilding and we're here and we're going to be here. And the inbound interest has been absolutely incredible. So there's not enough hours in the day for us to engage with all of the people that are interested in being part of the Pac-12. Our goal is to be really intentional about that process and make sure that we're putting ourselves in the best position to be successful. And that includes a timeline that balances that patience with that aggressiveness.
Well, there's not enough hours in the day to talk to you, because we could talk to you for hours. So many questions, but we'd rather, hey, we're going to get out and then we're just going to bring you back on, right? So that'll be good. We'll cut you loose. I know you got a lot of meetings, but thank you so much, Commissioner Teresa Gould. Just so happy for the league. I mean, you know what the league has meant to me in my life and my family. My son still does 12 push-ups every morning for the Pac-12, which is amazing. So he's getting stronger, and as is the league. How about that? So thank you very much.
I appreciate it, Yogi. I really appreciate all that you do for the league and all your support of me personally. It means a lot.
Anytime. Thank you so much. There it is, Teresa Gould. It's the Afterglow. That was Teresa Gould, Commissioner of the Pac-12, presented by our founding partner, 76. Always keeping you fueled up when you are on the go, go, go. Hopefully you were listening to this conversation wherever you are. Remember, we're on Pac-12 Insider, as well as Substack, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your podcasts. But Jim, your thoughts on the Commissioner of the Pac-12 Conference talking about phase 1 and a little bit into phase 2 of the rebuild of this historic league?
Well, the words that stuck with me there was we did it. Like, and how, obviously we're not there anymore, but we're still, we still talk to those people. We still talk to pretty much all the people at the conference, probably someone at the conference every single day, whether it's, working on this or working that or helping here or giving advice or back and forth. But you talked about, like, the phone calls. Like, I still have the voicemail on here from Teresa, like, that she left because I think I was either on the other line, like, trying to figure something else out, and I came through and I was like, oh, whatever. But, like, that's one of the two, work related, I guess I will say, phone calls with voicemails that I'll leave on here for a long time. I've got that one, and I've got the one that Lute Olson, when he called me after we had done an interview, and he called to thank me for that, and I was, like, blown away by that. So those two things, Lute Olson, Teresa Gould, that's good company right there. So yeah, you're staying in this phone for a while.
I love that. As I look over to the left of my camera here in our little office, I see these steps in our backyard. And on August 4th, when the Pac-12 changed dramatically, one of the first calls I had was with Commissioner Teresa Gould. And, we've known each other for a long time. And just like, conversations that you and I had that day. And then as that news came out last week, we talked, she referenced it in the interview late at night. And it was just amazing, to your point of, like, she did it. We did it. Like, her schools, all of her partners, they took the next step. And I just love the idea of, there's a world where you can sit back and hopefully get invited to somebody's party. We've seen that play out. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with doing that, right? Cal and Stanford got into the ACC. That's amazing, right? We saw what happened in other conferences. Amazing. But I think there's something about what she's often referenced, which is being bold, aggressive, open-minded, and intentional. And I think with this league, like, is it going to become the SEC? Look, let's not get ahead of ourselves. But I think it is taking a step that's necessary to put themselves right back in the conversation they belong in, which is being in a preeminent conference in all of college sports, but specific to this audience, college football, and driven from the West Coast. Like, there's something that it's a huge part of the country, man. like it needs to happen. And I love that it happens. And so many people that I've talked to and you've talked to in sports media, in collegiate athletics, fired up that they made the next move versus sat back. And I just think that's amazing. And then the other one was what she referenced about, look, we have a lot of friends that are part of the 30 people that are employed there still. Well, now, like, they don't have to necessarily be looking for another job because they're not sure what's going to happen with the league. And I'm just, assuming here, but I'd imagine that feels pretty good, let alone the growth potential now. And then the unique way to grow. Like, it just gets to be something different. And I think oftentimes in college sports, like, we are oftentimes trying to stick back to tradition from an administrative standpoint. And I think all the leaders, whether it's, commissioners at a variety of different conferences, I think college athletics have a chance to be pretty cool. Whether it's the new way of thinking of Tony Petitti, whether it's obviously Brent Yormark thinks differently. Like, Sankey's been around for a long time. Like, I like that, Jim. Like, I think that's kind of cool. And Teresa's got a rightful seat at that table. And I just love the initiative that she took.
Yeah, and this is what I always tell people when they start asking me stuff about like realignment or whatever like that. I'm like, think back 5 years ago, fall of 2019. Anybody who says that they saw any of this coming in those 5 years is lying to you. So anybody who tells you now they know what this is going to look like in 5 years is lying to you. It is a roller coaster. We lived it intently. And right, you just kind of, what's your speech where you're in the roller coaster and you put your hands up, like you just chasing what matters, man. That's what we got to do around here. It's just get on that roller coaster and just go along for the ride.
Yeah. Hey, stay entertained. We know college football will not disappoint. All right, there it is. Long podcast, but a lot of hopeful, thoughtful dialogue in college football through the lens of the West Coast. Again, big love to Commissioner Teresa Gould coming on this show. Love having her as a guest. We'll make sure when phase 2 is completed, we'll bring her back on to talk through that. Why not? It's entertaining, it's fun, it's informative, and really insightful. So big thanks and a lot of love in that regard. And of course, to all of you. This community does not happen if you do not continue to support and subscribe to yoption.com. Thank you for that. What is coming up next? We've got our 5-star advice newsletter coming out later this week, Saturday night. Keep it locked on social media because Jim just keeps crushing it every game day. He doesn't sleep. He needs to rest those fingers and those thumbs. I'll give you a little shout out from the booth in Indiana. I got a 9 a.m. Pacific game. And then, of course, on Sunday, thoughts from the sky, 30,000 feet. I'll give you all my thoughts in college football. So,
and isn't it
another one?
Isn't it somebody's birthday this week?
My wife's birthday. Big shout out to Amy Kim. We love you. You're amazing. Thank you.
But I think the whole Roth family, right? Then we got
true. I just keep growing.
Just keep that one of the
yeah.
So happy birthday to everybody in your household there.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I still wish I could like put that helmet on and run some runs. I do feel like I'm still 20, even though I'm gonna be 43. But that's all right. Hey, it's all mental, baby. Yeah. It's all mental. All right. Lots of love. Thank you, Jim. Thank you to all of you. Stay safe. Lots of love. Happy week 4. Peace.